Today we will be solving quadratic equation by extracting the square root. There are 5 methods in solving quadratic equation, namely extracting the square root, factoring, completing the square, quadratic formula, and graphing. We will be discussing them in the next topic, but today we are going to focus on extracting the square root. We use extracting the square root in solving a quadratic equation when the equation is in the form ax squared plus c is equal to 0. That is, if there is no linear term in the equation, meaning the value of b is equal to 0. So remember that the standard form of the quadratic equation is ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0, wherein ax squared is the quadratic term, bx is the linear term, and c is the constant term. Now, in solving a quadratic equation using extracting the square root method, we have to isolate the x squared term and then apply the square root property, which states that if u squared is equal to a, then u is equal to positive negative square root of a. Now, in solving quadratic equation in the form ax squared plus c is equal to 0, you have to isolate first the square term. That is, ax squared plus c is equal to 0. It becomes ax squared is equal to negative c. Solving further, we divide both sides by a. We now have x squared is equal to negative c over a. Then apply the square root property, extracting the square root of both sides. We have x is equal to this positive negative square root of negative c over a. Make sure to include the positive and negative signs. Okay, let us solve, for example, the equation 2x squared minus 50 is equal to 0 using extracting the square root method. We have 2x squared is equal to 50. That is isolating your x squared. Divide both sides by 2, cancel. We now have x squared is equal to 25. Applying the square root method, we have x is equal to positive negative 5. So the value of x is positive negative 5. We have 4x squared is equal to 81. Divide both sides by 4. We now have x squared is equal to 81 over 4. Then extract the square root of both sides. We now have x is equal to square root of 81 is 9, and then square root of 4 is 2. Don't forget to add to write the positive and negative signs. 3x squared is equal to 5. Divide both sides by 3. We now have x squared is equal to 5 over 3. Then extract the square root of both sides. We now have x is equal to positive negative square root of 5 over square root of 3. Now the denominator is a rational number, therefore we have to rationalize. So we multiply the denominator with square root of 3 and the numerator with square root of 3. So we now have positive negative square root of 15 all over 3. We will be discussing how to rationalize uh, rational numbers in our next topic. Okay, we now have the square of x minus 2 is equal to 100. Extract the square root of both sides. We now have x minus 2 is equal to positive negative 10. We add 2 on both sides. We now have x is equal to positive negative 10 plus 2. X is equal to 10 plus 2, that's our x sub 1 is 12, and our x sub 2 would be negative 10 plus 2 is equal to negative 8. We can write, so meaning our solution is 12 and negative 8. Next, we have 2 over 3 times the square of the quantity x plus 1/3 is equal to 8 over 27. Okay, to isolate the square of the quantity x plus 1/3, we have to take out 2/3 by multiplying 3 halves, the opposite. To the other side also, we also have to multiply 3 halves. Why? Because 3 divided by 3 is 1 and 2 divided by 2 is 1. So we were able to isolate the quantity, the square of the quantity x plus 1/3 is equal to 8 divided by 2 is 4, and then simplify 3 over 27, that would be 1 over 9. 4 times 1 is still 4, so over 9. So applying the square root property, we now have x plus 1/3. So that is x plus 1/3 is equal to the square root of 4 positive negative, square root of 4 is 2, and the square root of 9 is 3. Therefore, transpose positive 1/3, it will become negative 1/3. That is actually deducting negative 1/3 on both sides. So we now have x sub 1 is equal to 2 over 3 minus 1 over 3. That would be 1 over 3. That's our x sub 1. And our x sub 2 would be negative 2 over 3 minus 1 over 3. So that would be negative 3 over 3, or negative 1. So the values of x are negative 1 and 1/3. Now, before we proceed to our activity, let us first remember that quadratic equation, which can be written in the form x squared is equal to k, can be solved by applying the following properties. Let's say if k is greater than 0, then x squared is equal to k has two real solutions or roots. That is, x is equal to positive negative square root of k. Example, x squared is equal to 25. K is 25 and 25 is greater than 0, which means that the equation has two solutions, which are 5 and negative 5. And if k is equal to 0, then x squared is equal to k has one real solution or root, and that is x is equal to 0. Example, x squared is equal to 0, k is 0, means that the equation has one solution, and that is 0. To check, 0 squared is equal to 0. And if k is less than 0, then x squared is equal to k has no real solution or root. Example, x squared plus 9 is equal to 0. That becomes x squared is equal to negative 9. K here is negative, meaning the equation has no real root. I would like you to stop right here and solve the activity. You can pause, and then afterwards, you can continue the video to check if your answer is correct. Okay, time is up. Let's see if your answers are correct. We have 49 minus the square of 2x is equal to 0. So we write 49 minus the square of 2x is 4x squared is equal to 0. Deduct 49 on both sides to cancel 49. That is to isolate our negative 4x squared. So we now have negative 4x squared is equal to negative 49. Okay, so divide all terms by negative 4. Negative 4. We now have x squared is equal to negative divided by negative is positive. So it just copy 49 over 4. Then extract the square root of both sides. Then we have x is equal to positive negative. Square root of 49 is 7 and square root of 4 is 2. So the value of x is positive negative 7 over 2. Next, we have x squared minus 25 is equal to 0. Transpose negative 25, meaning we add 25 on both sides. So we have x squared is equal to 25. So extract the square root. We have x is equal to positive negative 5 as the square root of 25. Okay, next is the equation 6 times the square of the quantity 5 plus x minus 42. First, we are going to add 42 on both sides to isolate this part. So we now have 6 times 5 plus x raised to the second power, or you may say transpose, no, is equal to positive 42. Then we now divide both sides by 6. Cancel. So we have 5 plus x raised to the second power. 42 divided by 6 is 7. Then apply the square root property, extracting the square root on both sides. Cancel. We now have 5 plus x is equal to positive negative square root of 7. Then isolate x. So we now have 5 would become negative 5 plus minus square root of 7. So these are now the values of x. Okay, next we have the square of the quantity 2x plus 3 over 3 minus 13 is equal to 0. Transpose negative 13 to the other side. We now have the square of the quantity 2x plus 3 over 3 is equal to 13. Multiply 3 on both sides of the equation. So when we multiply 3 on both sides of the equation, we cancel 3. So we now have the square of the quantity 2x plus 3 is equal to 39. Okay, extract the square root of both sides. We now have 2x plus 3 is equal to positive, negative 39. Please do not forget positive and negative signs. Then you transpose 3 to the other side. That is actually uh, deducting 3 on both sides. So you have 2x is equal to negative 3 plus minus square root of 39. So divide 2 on both sides to isolate x and to find the value of x. So we now have x sub 1 is equal to negative 3 plus square root of 39 over 2. And our x sub 2 is negative 3 minus square root of 39 over 2. Next, we have the square of the quantity x minus 3 is equal to 16. Simply extract the square root of both sides, cancel. We now have x minus 3 is equal to positive, negative 4. Then transpose negative 3 to the other side. That is actually adding 3 on both sides. So we now have x is equal to positive negative 4 plus 3. So your x sub 1 is 4 plus 3 equals 7. And your x sub 2 is negative 4 plus 3, which is negative 1. Next, we have negative 4x squared plus 9 equals 0. Transpose 9. So you have negative 4x squared is equal to negative 9. Divide all terms by negative 4. You have x squared is equal to negative divided by negative is positive. Just copy 9 over 4. Then extract the square root of both sides. Cancel. You now have x is equal to the square root of 9. Okay, wait. The square root of 9 is 3, and the square root of 4 is 2. Do not forget to write positive and negative signs. Next, we have 51 minus the square times 3 times the square of quantity 2x minus 3 is equal to 0. Now, you can transpose 51. That is deducting 51 on both sides. So we now have negative 3 times the square of the quantity 2x minus 3 is equal to negative 51. Then, to isolate the x square, you have to divide both terms or both sides by negative 3. So cancel negative divided by negative 3. You now have 2x minus 3 square is equal to negative divided by negative is positive. 51 divided by 3 is 17. Then extract the square root of both sides. We now have 2x minus 3 is equal to positive negative square root of 17, since 17 is not a perfect square. Okay, next, you transpose negative 3, meaning you add 3 on both sides. So what remains is 2x is equal to 3 plus minus square root of 17. To isolate x and solve for x, divide 2 on both sides. So you now have x is equal to 3 plus minus square root of 17 all over 2. We have x sub 1 is equal to 3 plus square root of 17 divided by 2. And our x sub 2 is 3 minus square root of 17 all over 2. Next is 9 times the square of the quantity x minus 1 plus 7 equals 0. Transpose 7 to the other side, meaning deduct 7 on both sides. So you now have 9 times the square of the quantity x minus 1 is equal to negative 7. Divide both sides by 9. You now have x minus 1 square is equal to negative 7 over 9. Then extract the square root of both sides. Cancel. We now have x minus 1 is equal to positive negative 7 over 9. So in this case, we have to transpose negative 1. We have, you may write 1 first, or the square root of negative 7 over 9. So let's start with 1. So that is positive 1 plus minus square root of negative 7 over 9. So in this case, there is no solution since there is no solution. We will explain later why there is no solution. Up next, we have 1 over the square of 1 over x minus 1 over 9 is equal to 0. Transpose 1 over 9, positive 1 over 9. Okay. Then extract the square root of both sides. We now have 1 over x is equal to positive negative 1 over 3. There are actually many ways of solving the value of x. We can use the ratio and proportion. So that is x is equal to 3. Then the other one is 1 over x is equal to negative 1 over 3. Cross multiply, you now have x is equal to negative 3. Or you may use another way. Let's say, for example, 1 over x square is equal to 1 over 9. So you now have 1 over x squared is equal to 1 over 9. Simply multiply both sides by 9x squared, which is the less common denominator of the two fractions. So you now have, cancel x squared, you now have 9 times 1 is equals to 9. Then 9x squared divided by 9 is x squared. Okay, wait, x squared. Then you can extract the square root of both sides. So square root of x squared, square root of 9 is equal to x is equal to positive negative 3. This is all for extracting the square root. See you again for the next video solving quadratic equation by factoring. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. And don't forget to ring that notification bell so that you will be notified once I upload another video. Thank you for listening.